Hello again and welcome to another Morty and Glory Warhammer 40k video. In today's episode we are going to be asking and answering one simple question. What is the new best Leman Russ? With all the changes that have been happening in the meta, with Pariah Nexus, balanced data slates and Minotaur and field manuals abound, the old order is dead. The new order is here, and we need to find out what is the best Leman Russ to enter this new epoch of 40k. And so without further ado, let's mount up, roll out, and drive right into today's episode. You there! Have you bought yourself a copy of Sharpe's Command yet? Damn you, sir! Or use the affiliate link down below in the description to buy yourself a copy of the latest book in the best-selling series by Bernard Cornwell.
The fault was not mine, sir. Major Lennox must answer.
Major Lennox answer with his life! You disgraced us, sir! You shamed us, sir!
Sharpe's Command is jam-packed full of action from start to finish. So what are you waiting for? Click on the affiliate link below and buy yourself a copy today. Support the channel and your king and country.
Yes, sir.
Let us begin with a brief reminder, a refresher of the Leman Russ chassis. Regardless of what variant you go for, each Leman Russ has a movement of 10 inches, toughness 11, 2+ save, 13 wounds, leadership 7, and an objective control of 3. This gives it an impressive amount of durability, considering they're often quite cheap points costs. A lot of Leman Russ variants are noticeably less expensive than their counterparts in other armies. Every Leman Russ variant can also take a smorgasbord of additional weapons. You can have a las cannon or a heavy bolter or a heavy flamer in the hull mount in the front. And you can take either 2 heavy bolters, 2 heavy flamers, 2 multi-melters or 2 plasma cannons in the side sponsons. In addition, you can have a storm bolter or a heavy stubber on a pintle mount on top, and you can also give the tank a hunter killer missile. This gives the Leman Russ 5 weapon systems, and we've not even counted the main turret yet. Now, all of the different Leman Russ weapons hit on a ballistic skill of 4+. So typically, if you want these guys to deal any damage, you want to give them the take aim order, either from a tank commander or from the Lord Solar Leontus. Finally, whilst it's not an ideal situation for your Leman Russ, they do have some potential in melee. Now, their basic armored tracks aren't much to write home about. They do get 6 attacks at weapon skill 4+, strength 7, AP 0, damage 1. But the reason why you might end up charging a Russ into combat is because of the way tank shock now works. Rather than being based on the number of attacks or the strength of your weapon, is instead done on your toughness value. This means that a Leman Russ, when tank shocking, can roll up to 11 dice to try and inflict mortal wounds. That can often be enough to finish off a particularly durable or tough opponent. Now that covers the Russ in a very general way, but the real distinctions between each tank come down to the main weapon in the turret and their datasheet ability. And that's what we're going to dive into right now, starting off with what I think is the worst Leman Russ variant at the moment, and one of the only ones I would actively describe as bad, and that is the Leman Russ Punisher. Now don't get me wrong, the Leman Russ Punisher is one of the coolest tanks out there. It is equipped with the Punisher Gatling Cannon, which maybe even the Orcs would consider to be enough DACA. With its 20 shots at strength 6, AP 0, damage 1, this thing is designed for scything down hordes of light infantry. The problem is, we're not in a light infantry meta. You could argue with certain factions like Blood Angels on the Rampage at the moment and Space Wolves that we have a lot of cavalry out there and we have a lot of power armored infantry, but the Leman Russ Punisher doesn't do very well into either one of those things. It is good at scything down Hormagaunts, Termagants. It can do a decent job at killing Orc boys and other guardsmen. But the thing is, the Imperial Guard does not struggle with killing those targets already. We've got las guns and heavy bolters attached to every goddamn unit that we can get our hands on. Every vehicle can go into battle with at least a couple of heavy bolters, a heavy stubber on top. Every guardsman unit's got a whole bunch of las guns. You've got plasma guns. You just don't struggle with volume of fire in the Guard. And so the Punisher, it's really cool and it is so much fun to roll those dice. But its main gun just isn't relevant at the moment. On top of this, its ability, mow down the enemy, gives it devastating wounds when it's shooting its main gun, but not against monsters or vehicles. And so getting a bunch of dev wounds might help offset the power armor situation a little bit, but I think best case scenario, you're going to get on average a couple of devastating wounds from this thing, and that's like one dead marine. It's not good for... It's a cheap Rust variant. It's only 150 points, but it's not good for a 150 point unit. Now, some people might argue that with the new lethal hits, the Leman Russ Punisher has a lot of potential to generate those lethal hits with its 20 shots, and that is true. But I think the issue then comes down to its lack of AP. It's not even AP 1, guys. It's AP 0. So in order for this thing to really start meaningfully scratching enemy holes, you need to boost its AP by at least 2. Because if they're in cover, then if you boost it by AP 1 with Fields of Fire or an Exterminator, then the enemy basically just ignores the AP 1. So because of that, I think it needs too much help going into vehicles to make it really benefit from the lethal hits, and I think it has a gun which just does a job which the Guard doesn't need. Moving on to the next Leman Russ, we have a possibly controversial classic Mordian Glory hot take here. And so we may be surprised to see this bad boy this far down the tier list, but I'm going to say the Leman Russ Demolisher. Now, fundamentally, the Demolisher is not a bad vehicle. Its gun has got the potential to spike incredible damage, and it is absolutely my go-to cannon choice on tank commanders. But that's the thing. If you're going to take a Demolisher, you might as well take a tank commander, because the difference between those two units is 5 points. And the tank commander arguably has a much better ability in death befitting an officer, and also, can do orders. Those of you that are curious about the Demolisher Battle Cannon, it's a 24-inch range D6 plus 3 shot weapon with strength 14, AP 3, damage D6. That D6 can be very, very swingy, although I have had it spike. I've also had it do 1 damage, 2 damage, 1 damage, but there you go. The Leman Russ Demolisher's ability, Line Breaker, means that it can shoot whilst in combat. Now, in niche lists, like going full tank company, tanks that have this ability can be quite useful because you use them for screening. You're like, I don't care if this thing gets started in combat, I'm just going to blast my way out. But outside of those niche scenarios, the Line Break ability doesn't really want to be coming up, because in a best case scenario, your Russ isn't going to be in combat. Other units like guards may be screening for it. So because of all of those things, and because it's overshadowed by the tank commander, I'm putting it this far down. Now that covers what I would say are the actively bad and or redundant Leman Russ variants. But moving forward, I want to make something abundantly clear. All of the next Russes we're going to look at, I think are good, I think are potential, and I think can be an active and positive impact on your list. But I've put them in order that makes sense to me based on my experience and my gut feeling. But if you think that I've been overly harsh on a variant, or you have one that you think should be much higher up on my list, let me know down in that comment section. Let me know the order that you would put these things in, because it's always interesting to see how other Guard players' experiences have shaped their perceptions of units. And I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. With all of that said, let's continue with our analysis and let's have a gander at the Eradicator. Now, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for the Eradicator, but it is a bit of a niche vehicle. It's designed to be an anti-infantry tank that can dig enemies out of cover. This is reflected in its Eradicator Nova Cannon, which fires a Strength 7, AP -1, damage 2 bombardment. Now, it actually has a really cool feature, which is that it fires D3 plus 6 shots. This is kind of the reverse of a lot of Leman Russes, which fire D6 plus 3 shots. This number of shots, this way the Eradicator Nova Cannon works, gives it a very reliable output. Even if you roll a 1 on the dice, you still get 7 shots. That's much, much more than, let's say, like a battle tank, where if you roll a 1 on that random shots, you only get 4. Traditionally, the Eradicator has struggled with tanks, but with the new lethal hits and the fact that it's got a lot of shots that it can pump out, I feel like this one might be one to watch. It might be a little bit of a sleeper. The only reason I've put it this far down is because of its ability, Urban Warfare, which, a bit like the Demolisher ability, it's good if you're planning on using this thing to screen, but ideally this thing shouldn't be getting into combat, you should be screening it effectively. And also the fact that it is only damage 2. So even if you are lethal hitting against vehicles, you might only be taking a couple of pips of damage off them each time you sneak a wound through. Next up, we have another potentially controversial choice, and that is the Executioner. I think some people believe this should be in the top 3, and I have to admit I could be persuaded to that point of view. The Executioner Plasma Cannon fires D6 plus 3 shots, and you can do it in a standard shot or a supercharge. In the standard shot, it's strength 7, AP minus 2, damage 2, and in the supercharge, it is strength 8, AP minus 3, damage 3. Now, in a funny sort of way, that standard shot is similar to the Eradicator. It might not ignore cover, but it's got the extra pip of AP. The difference, of course, being that slightly more swingy number of shots. The big thing is, though, the supercharge, right? That's what you want to be doing. Going up to AP minus 3 and damage 3 is very, very tasty. And it does mean that this tank is a lot less reliant on other variants like the Exterminator, which we'll be looking at later, or Fields of Fire to get it to punch through enemy cover. In all honesty, the reason why the Executioner is not in the top 3 for me is because of its ability, which is kind of useless. You get +1 to hit when you're shooting against enemies that are below half strength. In my mind, I feel like this is just going to lead to people overkilling targets. And also, I want my Executioners to be delivering hammer blows. How I like to work with my guard is I send my big tanks into their big stuff, I do as much damage as I can, and then if my tanks don't quite get the job done, I'll try and chip wounds off with some infantry, with some chimeras, maybe finish something off with some supporting artillery. But I don't want to do all of my supporting fire first and then just massively overkill with the Executioner. It just seems like it makes for quite an inefficient system of play. But now we get into the top 3, and taking the bronze medal is the Leman Russ Exterminator. Now, on its own, the Exterminator autocannon is a very impressive weapon. It's rapid fire 4, twin linked with a 48-inch range and 4 shots base, which means if you get within 24 inches, you get 8 shots with this bad boy. It's got strength 9, AP minus 1, damage 3, and that strength 9 now isn't such a problem because of lethal hits, and anything that you don't lethal with, you get full rerolls thanks to the twin linked. That damage 3 is very tasty as well, really being able to tear chunks out of enemy units. The issue with the Exterminator is only AP minus 1, but this is more than made up for by the fact that A, there are other units in your army that can support it, like the Hellhound, ignoring cover, and you can use Fields of Fire to boost its AP. But really, why the Exterminator makes it onto the podium at all is because of its ability, Withering Hail. After you've shot the Exterminator at an enemy unit, any other guard units that shoot at that same enemy unit get to increase all of their weapons AP by 1. So this allows your Exterminator to be a huge force multiplier. With the changes in Pariah Nexus and the balanced data slate, and with Creed's Fields of Fire no longer being free anymore, being able to cram in other sources of additional AP is very, very important. And it's this extra AP, it's this force multiplication that has secured the Exterminator to 3rd place. But this is it. It comes down to just this final 2. And getting the silver medal is the venerable, the old faithful, the El Clasico Leman Russ battle tank. Armed with its trusty battle cannon firing D6 plus 3 shots at strength 10, AP minus 1, damage 3, the Leman Russ battle tank is a take-all-comers. You can sling one of these things into any unit and it will do some damage, especially when you take into account all those extra guns that will be piling onto it as well. And those extra guns are very important on the battle tank. They're not just a cheeky couple of plasma cannons. Because the battle tank, in my opinion, has the best ability out of any Russ variant, and that is Armored Spearhead. Each time this model makes an attack that targets an enemy unit, reroll a hit roll of 1, and if that unit is within range of an objective marker you do not control, you can reroll the hit roll instead. This is the only ability that affects all of the guns, not just the main weapon. This allows you to get full rerolls on the battle tank with relative ease, and combine that with the new lethal hits, you can get a lot of those sweet sixes. Now, you may argue that the battle cannon's AP-1 is a bit of a hindrance, and I would not disagree with you on that. But as we pointed out a few times in this video, there are definitely ways to support this vehicle. Exterminators, Hellhounds, and even the Exterminator that we mentioned earlier are all great combinations with the battle tank to overall deliver a punishing amount of firepower. But there can only be one Russ to rule them all, and in the meta, bind them. And in what very well may be the hottest of mordianglorytv takes, what I think is going to cause a big old stir, I have given the top slot to the Leman Russ Vanquisher. Previously, when I had just looked at this Russ on paper and I'd theory crafted it, I put it bottom tier. I said that the one shotgun would be too susceptible to invulnerable saves, and it was just one of those weapons that it was very swingy. I have now used the Leman Russ Vanquisher with its awesome Vanquisher battle cannon, which fires a strength 18, AP-4, damage D6 plus 6 shot. I have used this in 8 competitive games. I took it 3 times into Necrons, who all spammed 4+ invulnerable saves, what should have been this thing's kryptonite. I took this thing into Demons, 4+ invulnerable saves, should be this thing's kryptonite. Deathwing Terminators. You name it, it's faced it. And it remains undefeated. In 8 competitive games where I have spammed Leman Russ Vanquishers, where I have taken 3 of them and I've supported them well, either with mechanized infantry or in a hybrid guard army, they have slapped. And the big thing with the Vanquisher is, yeah, they might save the first one. They might even save the second one. But one of the shots always gets through. And at some point in your game, that shot has the potential to completely delete an enemy asset and completely turn a game on its head. I have won games because of a cheeky Leman Russ Vanquisher shot. Just the amount of spike damage that it can do. The amount of hurt that it can lay down onto a high value enemy asset. And more importantly, the amount it can influence your opponent. Yeah, your opponent might, on average, be able to save all of the shots. Maybe. But if they don't, it could spell doom for them. I've had multiple people deploy units way further back in a way less efficient position because of the potential damage that the Vanquisher could do. That has bought me more time, and that has allowed me to be more aggressive. That has allowed me to seize the initiative and start dictating the flow of the game. And it was purely down to the possibility that these guns could cause a big headache for my opponent. And on top of all of that, it's the cheapest variant, 145 points at the time of recording. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to disagree with the Vanquisher getting the top spot, and very well may disagree with the order I've put these Russes in general. And you know what? That's totally okay, because this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. What order would you rank the Leman Russes, and which one do you think has the top spot in 10th edition right now, and why? If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you smash that like button. It really is a big help, and it does boost the video with the YouTube algorithm. And also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.